Hey you guys, I wanted to come on here and talk about the responses Black people are having towards two situations involving the inept buffoon occupying presidency and provide an analysis as to why this pattern of behavior keeps repeating itself. But before I get started, make sure you guys go and check out Ash Kicking for all of your healthcare and skin needs. Remember, if you use code ChrisMoore1, you will receive a 15% discount off your purchase at checkout, so please make sure to go and support Black-owned businesses. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is this presidential debate circus. I was initially not going to speak on this because for me, I feel like you guys get the idea of where my perspective stands in terms of politics in general, but I did want to address something that was trending on Black Twitter and other social media platforms. Now, just a heads up, I won't be talking about the debate per se, but I will reference one part of it because I feel the rest was irrelevant and unnecessary, which is why I didn't watch it. Now, apparently at some point throughout the discussion, there was a topic that came up talking about Trump denouncing white supremacy and the groups most commonly associated with it. Now, before I get into Black people's confusion regarding his inability to not condemn this, I want to touch base on white supremacy and what it embodies, because I think a lot of us seem to relegate it to groups, specifically that of the KKK and the Proud Boys and other white nationalist groups and individuals. I also believe that this is the reason why Black people in general don't necessarily understand what racism and white supremacy are. White supremacy in itself is about a structural system, one that is centuries old and strategically put into effect to help serve and benefit white people. This means that any and every person from the larger society possesses the capability to express racism because racism is a system of power used to oppress other races of people. And I feel like this needs a small breakdown because I still see some of us running around here in these social spaces talking about other Black people being racist because we were mean to a non-Black person or we hurt a non-Black person's feelings. Hurting someone's feelings or calling someone a name is not racist, especially because you have to take into consideration the person who's socially expressing these sentiments. And the reason why a non-Black person saying the N-word is considered racist is because of the historical context surrounding that word. It doesn't matter if it has the A or the ER at the end of it, the word still has power to it and becomes amplified when it comes out of the mouth of a non-Black person. And we really need to be careful regurgitating the talking points of our oppressors and internalizing the mindset as a result of their manipulative sociopathic talking points to try and absolve themselves of any associated behavior from their forefathers that created this system. And understand one thing, that some Black people take the word of a person from the larger society as gospel. This is why oftentimes in certain situations, Black people won't believe their own people on subjects until a colonizer comes along and corroborates the story. And this kind of leads into internalized inferiority, which is a separate video, so I'll save that for later. But now that you guys have that quick breakdown, you can talk about why Black people seem to be confused about the fact that Trump didn't censure or deprecate white supremacy. And Trump's sole claim to his current position is the system of white supremacy itself. And unfortunately, one of the characteristics of that system is to uplift the people it benefits in every avenue, even those with very mediocre intellectual capacities. It explains why he was able to become president with no form of degree, a wife whose resume consists of being a Playboy model. And this is why in other venues like movies and music, talent is so lackluster amongst melanin deficient people, but sales are still exponentially impressive. And this is why in the realm of hip hop, a Black music genre, the greatest selling rapper of all time isn't even a Black person, and why the imminent devaluation of Blackness is so pervasive. Now, to elaborate a little further on the main issue, Trump is not going to criticize white supremacy when this is the very system that gave him the benefit of his current position. And I think even you all know to a certain degree that that would be highly illogical, and I feel like the aspect they mention it in is a little disingenuous because, again, white supremacy isn't a group of people, it is a global system, a concept, if you will, that affords people from the larger society certain benefits based on their appearance and recessive genetics. Why it is that Black people have this expectation that Trump would really try and scrutinize that which made him, I have no idea. And this reinforces a point I made in the past about how Black people think they understand race in its entirety, but clearly from our interactions, you can tell that we are very remedial in this discussion. Just the notion alone that we had the anticipation of him condemning his cohorts is irrational. And one thing I will say is that if we have any hope to try and save ourselves, we cannot afford to be so naive and ignorant to the workings of this society. And when I say everything is intentional and done with purpose, that rings true. And make no mistake, just because I'm being critical of Agent Orange and his clueless looking wife, that doesn't mean I'm voting for Biden. It's a shame that I have to state that, but you have some that by default think that being critical of Trump is synonymous for supporting Democrats. So that's why I had to make that disclaimer. I want to talk about this other situation, and again, it involves Captain Incompetent and his shameful companion. The two of them apparently have come into contact with COVID-19 and now are being treated at a healthcare facility. And a lot of people were speculating that the timing of this is very coincidental. It could be possible that this is a subterfuge to avoid having to participate in future upcoming debates. And I have to say that that is a very likely possibility. Again, we are talking about a 70-something-year-old man with the educational level of a third grader, one whose grammar mechanics and spellings may be first grade at best. Now, what I find to be ironic is before his contraction of this virus, he was running around everywhere talking about this isn't real and encouraging news reporters to remove their masks, basically indulging in degeneracy that's typical for a person like him. And now all of a sudden we see blogs and news articles talking about how he now has this along with his wife, Caitlyn Jenner. Yet again, my commentary will more so center around the social interactions of Black people in these media spaces because what I've been seeing is not surprising but extremely disappointing. And this isn't all Black people, but I have seen a few posts talking about how we shouldn't rejoice in someone else's misery no matter the character of that person. And it's like, are you guys serious? I hope this isn't a reach, but that type of rhetoric is very reminiscent of Christian beliefs and values. And you guys know that I don't find this religion to be favorable because of how it seems to cause our people to behave in a nonsensical manner. We are talking about a man who called for the execution of the Central Park Five during the late 80s. And keep in mind, they were just teenagers and little boys. A man that believes in sexually assaulting women and overall disrespectful and condescending towards everyone with no amount of contrition. We also need to think about why this pattern keeps reoccurring within the minds of Black people. Now, yes, we can say conditioning, but I feel like even with that, it's starting to become vague. It requires a certain depth to understand the propensity of this undesired behavior. Do Black people harbor a certain level of diminutive stature subconsciously? Meaning, do they devalue themselves in the presence of people that cause their subjugation? Why does this yearning for their acceptance at the expense of our progression take precedence over the relentless centuries of mistreatment? How quickly we forget the vile character of the ones that have malicious intent for us because they experience a brief period of weakness. And this display of feeble-minded, kind gestures for your enemy is also disrespectful to your ancestors when you think about the mutilation and other various forms of torture our people went through at the hands of the oppressor's forefathers. And then, of course, when you think about it, it should be a no-brainer because, of course, sympathy shouldn't be expressed because I can guarantee you that same generosity would not be extended to you. However, at the same time, I'm cognizant of how emotional our community is, which I also have supposition that this same emotion proves to be of great detriment time and time again. It clouds our discernment and renders our critical thinking skills ineffective because we are so caught in the emotional value of whatever situation has taken place that our worst enemy to us is our best friend. You all can sit here and try and argue me up and down, but this is real, and to me it's something that can't be contested because look at the Botham Jean case where he forgave the woman for taking his brother's life.
I know I can speak for myself. I forgive you. And I know if you go to God and ask him, he will forgive you.
Look at the Black man Darion Tolles. He was a Black man that was targeted by a melanin deficient woman for going to his luxury loft apartment because she believed he didn't live there.
Don't respond negative. Don't go after the lady. Let her be at peace. Let her live her life.
Then he said not to cause the woman any animus or harm. And I know we have a tendency to just throw conditioning out there, but I believe that this behavior needs to be addressed in a way that can produce tangible results. Let me also add to that yes, I know some of our people are pretty much a lost cause, but you want to try and educate as many as you can if you're able to, because our people, whether they want to admit it or not, are in a war. But I want to give my analysis on this. Black people have to at least make the effort to learn more about themselves and their past. we also have to realize the importance of placing value in ourselves, because until we start with those two, we will continue to observe this incessant, obsequious, and groveling nature where we are desperately begging for validation or acceptance intuitively. And the way we move in this society is so predictable that at this point, other races of people exploit this mechanism to their advantage. And you can almost be assured that somewhere one of us will be acting in a buffoonish manner, trying to satisfy and satiate the desires of the ones that cause us grief for some delusional hope of being liberated by the ones who benefit from your plight. And when I see Black people defend white supremacy instinctively, it makes me believe that our people, through some unaddressed generational trauma, suffer from Stockholm Syndrome. Because even though we no longer work on the plantations, you would think the ones who never wanted to leave are living amongst us right now based on their current actions. Because let's be honest, Trump is a terrible person. There should be no form of justification given to excuse this man or give him the satisfaction under any circumstance. As far as the mentality of the Black collective is concerned, it will be excruciatingly difficult to accomplish liberation if we don't change our way of thinking, or at least try to work towards understanding different perspectives. Because in all honesty, how can we make progress if we don't even like to engage in conversations that are uncomfortable? Having the uncomfortable conversations means you are willing to take the effort and initiative to not only improve who you are as a person, but by association, your community improves as well, because it breaks generational curses and pathologies. The way to effectively combat this, in my opinion, is through education and knowledge of self and people, and accurately placing value in community first before material possessions. But that's my take on this situation with Trump. What do you guys think? Do you believe Black people are still juvenile in their mindsets? And also let me know if you think liberation is something achievable if we start taking the necessary steps now. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, and share this video, and I'll see you in the next one.